from KiriMade, and I'm doing a series of videos to introduce non-weavers to weaving. Last week, I showed the actual weaving process, throwing the shuttle back and forth. This week, I'm going to talk about finishing the cloth. Once you've finished weaving, you usually have to do something to turn it from a piece of cloth with sort of loose ends into something that can be a finished object. But first, I have to cut my cloth off the loom. Okay, so now I've cut my cloth off the loom, but the next thing I do is I need to finish it. So what that means, part of it is about sort of making the cloth come all together. So you can see in the cloth that has come directly off the loom, you can actually see some little marks that are left by the reed because the threads are spaced out so that there's two threads in one reed slot. And so a lot of things are just finished by literally just washing them. And so the water and the agitation will make all the threads kind of close up together. Those holes will go away. And so then you'll have a finished piece of cloth. The other part about finishing is that you need to, when you take the big roll of cloth and cut it into pieces, you're then left with a raw edge, which obviously wouldn't function very well for something that's going to be like a towel or a placemat, which is what this is. So the easiest thing is to just make a hem like this. You literally just turn it under twice. And this one was done by machine, but you can also sew it down by hand. And so that's a really simple way of hemming, and that finishes it. And now this is ready to be used. Another way to finish things is, this is actually a technique that's mostly used on rugs, is you have the long threads that are coming off and then you basically just kind of intertwine them to make sort of a little braid, and then you can have some fringe. So there's a bunch of different ways of finishing. That's a little unique one. Another way of finishing things is to make fringe. So for instance, this was fringe that I just did on this blanket. But sometimes that's also useful for scarves and things like that. And then the other thing is, this blanket, in addition to having the fringe on it, this blanket was also fold, which is another way of finishing things. So what that means is, because this blanket is wool, wool likes to kind of felt together and stick to itself. So basically, to make it sort of nice and thick and fluffy, this was actually put through the washing machine with hot water. And that makes all the wool kind of meld together and you get this really nice, cozy finish. So those are just a few examples of different ways to turn your cloth that you get straight off the loom into a finished object that's ready to be used for its final purpose. So that's actually the end of this series, because we've now gone all the way from doing the warp on the warping board to putting it on the loom, and then finally cutting it off and turning it into a finished object. If you want to learn more, you can look at my blog, kirimade.com.